Mom lied. She said they were short on money and wouldn't be able to come to my daughter's birthday. I just nodded. A week later, I opened Facebook and saw it flooded with gifts for my sister's kids. I didn't cry, I moved quietly. By morning, Dad was on my porch yelling. When Mom told me they couldn't make it to my daughter Ellie's 10th birthday because money was tight, I nodded like it was fine. I even smiled. That's what I always did, pretended it didn't hurt, pretended I didn't see the pattern. She said it like it was unavoidable, like gas money was the issue, like it wasn't a simple 40-minute drive, one highway, no tolls, and like they hadn't come for smaller things before. I didn't argue. Arguing with people who already believe they're good parents is pointless. So I planned the party anyway. Balloons, streamers, all pink and silver like Ellie wanted. I stayed up late making gift bags, stuck butterfly stickers on each one. The cake had 10 candles and her name written in swirls. Ellie asked once if Grandma and Grandpa were coming. I said they couldn't. She didn't ask why. Just nodded and went back to her puzzle like she already knew not to expect them. That hurt more than anything, watching my kid learn disappointment so young. Then a week later, while waiting for a meeting, I opened Facebook again. And there it was. My sister Jenna's twins' birthday party. Not simple, over the top. Banners, balloon arches, custom cookies shaped like the number 5. And in photo after photo were my parents, smiling, matching shirts, holding gifts, holding her kids. Best grandparents ever. So lucky to have them. I sat in my car and stared. I wasn't angry, I didn't cry, something inside me just shut off. I didn't comment, I didn't call, I didn't explain myself. I went home, put Ellie to bed, and opened my laptop. Our business isn't small anymore. It started in my garage when Ellie was still in diapers. Now we have 2 storefronts and steady online sales. Yes, my parents helped later, after I'd built the foundation. They bought in, took a percentage, took credit, and acted like they saved me. But I'm the one who kept it alive. I stayed up fixing logistics, chasing suppliers, solving problems. They only showed up when it was convenient. I pulled up the contracts, the operating agreement, the ownership split. I took my time and read everything carefully. Turns out I had more control than they liked to admit. So I made changes quietly, every move backed by paperwork. The next morning, I woke up to pounding on my front door. My dad's truck was in the driveway, his voice booming like I owed him answers. I didn't open it. I stood there with my coffee, watching through the peephole until he finally left. A few hours later, the emails started, first from the shared business inbox, then my mom. Then missed calls from Jenna. I didn't answer. They figured it out quickly. I'd frozen non-essential transactions, changed vendor permissions, and limited system access. Nothing shady, all within my rights as majority owner. By lunch, Mom was sending long messages about family and overreacting. I stayed silent. Instead, I sent a brief company-wide email about management changes. Professional. Calm. Jenna left a voicemail, angry, calling me childish and bitter, saying this wasn't how a normal daughter acts. That made me laugh. I used to be the normal one, the fixer, the peacemaker, the one who accepted crumbs. The next day, I went to the office and met with our attorney. Together, we finalized the paperwork I'd put off for too long, ending my parents' roles, severance outlined, advisory positions removed. Everything filed, signed, and done. When I left the office, I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady, like things finally lined up the way they should have all along. That night, Jenna showed up unannounced. She stood in my driveway yelling about how I'd humiliated our parents, how heartbroken they were, how I needed to fix it. I let her talk. Then I asked one question, where were they on Ellie's birthday? She had no answer. She just stared like I'd changed the rules. I hadn't. I'd just stopped breaking them for her. I thought things would quiet down after that. They didn't. 2 mornings later, I saw a LinkedIn notification. My dad had updated his profile, former co-owner. An hour later, my mom did the same, with a vague quote about growth and a sunrise photo, just enough to save face. Then a supplier emailed me. My dad had called him, questioning whether he should keep working with us. The supplier sent the voicemail transcript. My dad called me unstable, said I'd taken over emotionally, claimed I'd ruined what we built. He wasn't just hurt, he was trying to undermine me. I didn't panic. I forwarded the message to our lawyer. Then I checked the financials and found one old shared business account still tied to them. I called the bank and removed them completely, something I should have done a long time ago. I was halfway through the paperwork when my phone started buzzing. Mom, then Jenna, then Mom again. I ignored them until I saw my ex-husband's name. We only talk about Ellie, so I answered, expecting an emergency. He told me my mom had called him, said I wasn't doing well, that I'd had some kind of breakdown and was making reckless decisions. She wanted him to talk sense into me. He told her not to call again and said he trusted me to handle whatever was happening. Then he added, honestly, it's about time. After we hung up, I just sat there, not shocked, just aware of how far they were willing to go, digging into my past to pull me back into place. That night, after Ellie went to bed, I thought about every birthday, every holiday, every excuse I'd made for them. Every time I protected their image so my daughter wouldn't feel the same neglect I grew up with. I was done doing that. They didn't lose a daughter. They lost the person who carried them. The paperwork was finalized on Thursday afternoon. I sat in the corner office I once shared with my mom, the one I used to think symbolized us building something together. Now I saw it for what it was. My lawyer sent the final documents: terminations, roles revoked, ownership corrected, access removed, clean and factual. I read every page, waiting for guilt or doubt. It never came. What I felt was relief, like finally closing a door that had been left open too long. By 12:17 p.m., I was ready to sign. It was official. I sent the confirmation to HR. The next 20 minutes passed in a blur, revoking logins, shutting down company emails, notifying the bank, updating vendor access. I watched their names disappear from the system in real time. I called a staff meeting and explained the management change, effective immediately. No drama, no emotions, just facts. My parents no longer represented the company. Their chapter was closed. Some people looked surprised. Others didn't react at all. That's when I realized how much I'd been covering for them. Afterward, I sat at my desk, coffee in hand, feeling something quiet and solid, like the ground had finally stopped moving. Then Jenna exploded. Missed calls, angry texts. She called me unstable, selfish, said I'd fired our parents like strangers. Then came the line that said everything: I'm the favorite, I always have been. It didn't hurt. It just confirmed what I already knew. I didn't respond. The next morning, she showed up at the office, acting like she owned the place. I refused to see her. She started yelling in the lobby until security escorted her out. No scene, just done. A few hours later, she sent one last message: you've lost your family. I deleted it. I hadn't lost anything. I'd lost the illusion. What I had now was a business running properly, a daughter finally put first, and a life where I no longer had to bend myself to earn a place with people who never chose me. There were no calls from my parents. No emails, no texts, not even a vague Facebook post. They went completely silent, and for the first time in months, my phone didn't feel like a threat in my pocket. Ellie and I fell back into a routine. Friday pizza nights. I started picking her up from school more instead of using aftercare. I noticed the small changes. She smiled more, asked fewer questions about people who never showed up, and stopped pretending she wasn't disappointed. I thought maybe that was the end of it. But the silence wasn't peace, it was build-up. Jenna kept stirring things up. She told mutual friends I'd turned into a tyrant at work, that I'd ruined the family business out of spite, even that I'd had a breakdown and was planning to sell the company. None of it was true. I ignored it until she crossed the line. Ellie had a small school event, one of those bring your family assemblies. She was excited. I told her it would just be me. But when I walked in, Jenna was already there, chatting like she belonged. She wasn't invited. Ellie wasn't even in her kids' class. I asked her why she was there. She smiled and said she came to support her niece. Ellie ran over and Jenna hugged her. Ellie smiled out of habit, not joy. I saw it clearly then, my daughter already learning how to smooth things over. That night, after Ellie was asleep, I called Jenna. I told her to stay away from school events, from my business, from my home. I said I was done keeping the peace. She didn't argue, she just said they're still our parents. You'll come back. You always do. Then she hung up. I sat there in the dark for a long time, realizing the kind of person who keeps causing damage is the kind who assumes they'll always be forgiven. But she was wrong. This wasn't a fight, it was closure. 3 days later, on a quiet Sunday morning, someone knocked on my door. It wasn't Jenna or a delivery. It was my parents standing there together. No yelling, no forced smiles. Just my dad holding a folder and my mom looking unsure of herself for once. I stepped aside and let them in, not out of warmth but curiosity. I wanted to see what excuse they'd try this time, but they didn't speak. My dad handed me the folder. Inside were 2 handwritten letters, one from each of them. I read them that night after Ellie fell asleep. They weren't dramatic, no blaming, no justifying. They admitted what they'd done, how they dismissed me, relied on me, and kept taking until I finally broke. My mom wrote that she never thought I'd walk away because I always came back. My dad said he was ashamed that he'd acted like a boss instead of a parent. They didn't ask for the business or forgiveness. They asked if we could talk, then they left. 2 weeks later, we met at a park. Neutral ground. Ellie wasn't there. For the first time in years, they listened. No interruptions, no defensiveness. I told them everything, about the birthday, about always being the backup child, about being expected to give while Jenna was protected. They cried quietly. No guilt trips. I told them I didn't know what the future looked like, that I'd learned how to protect myself, and that certain lines would never be crossed again. They said they understood. That they'd respect whatever boundaries I set. This wasn't about going back, it was about finally showing up the way they should have all along. 2 weeks later, they came to see Ellie. They brought a small gift, no fuss. Sat with her on the porch and talked. No photos, no posts, just time. Jenna found out eventually. She texted me in all caps, furious that I'd forgiven them. Said I was spineless, said I gave in. Claimed she had nothing to apologize for, but this time I didn't respond. My mom did. She sent Jenna one line, "You owe your sister an apology, start there." The silence that followed was the loudest I'd ever heard from Jenna. And for once, I didn't care what she did next. I wasn't fighting for a family anymore. I was protecting mine. And finally, I wasn't doing it alone.